In this video, our SAP Analytics Cloud product experts will demonstrate the main features of our new release. Feel free to jump straight to the features you're interested in by using the timestamps in the description below. Let's dive in and hear from our SAP Analytics Cloud product experts.
Hello, I'm Adrian Westmoreland, Product Manager with SAP Analytics Cloud, and I'd like to introduce you to a new feature being released, allowing administrators to set a user's profile settings. Administrators can now globally set user profile settings for their tenant, and they can apply these settings to all new users and also to existing users. This can be found under the System Administration Default Appearance tab, and with this new feature, administrators can now globally set a user's profile settings for language preferences, date and time, number formatting, and email and in-app notification preferences. The administrator can also decide if this is to be applied to all existing users in the tenant or only to new users. Individual users can still set their profile preferences themselves, but this gives administrators the opportunity to improve deployments by rolling out global settings to all users.
Hi, my name is Thierry Brunet. I am Product Manager, and today I present you a new feature of predictive planning that will be available in Q2. The goal of this feature is to give the possibility of a planning user to retrieve inside the planning story the prediction intervals that come with the prediction generated for future period. Let's see that in a short demo. This story shows the number of bags hired. I have an history from 2019 until near end of September 2023, as we see in the table and in the chart. I want to know how many bags will be hired in the next 11 days, but I also need to see in my story what is the minimum and maximum forecast for these 11 days. I have prepared a predictive scenario that provides me this prediction. Starting on September 25th, the plain line in the chart shows the forecasted values, and the dotted line shows the mean and max forecast for each of the 11 days in the future. When we scroll down, we see a table containing the values of these predictions. Until today, it was only possible to save the forecasted values in the planning model. Now, it is also possible to save the prediction intervals max and min. To do that, we have to apply the predictive model. As before, the forecasts are saved inside a version called here forecast. The mean and max prediction are saved in two specific versions I have created before. When I click on Save, the predictive model is applied, and all the forecasts are written to the corresponding version on my planning model. Once done, I just go back to my story and I just have to refresh it to get the estimation of the number of hiring by for the next 11 days, and now the prediction mean and max in both the table and the chart. This concludes this demonstration. Thanks for watching.
Powered by artificial intelligence, Just Ask is the natural language query technology that enables you to search for your data using business terms that you are familiar with. Today we're going to talk about some improvements that have been done for the QRC2, such as support for models stored in a workspace, ask for an aggregation, such as average, median, count, minimum and maximum. Also, labels to categorize models and sample question improvement. Ask for an aggregation. Questions about an average, median, or max value across locations time periods, and any other dimensions are very common. For example, average product sales. Or you can even ask for count market. Also, median sales by market. Or even minimum expense by store. Or the maximum also. Model selection improvement. It can be complicated to find the right model that you want to work with when you have a lot of them. It's for that we have improved the model selection process. These enhancements enable the administrator to assign individual models to particular labels. For example, the campaign 2023 model might be affiliated with the marketing label. This provides end users with an extra layer of insight into the model's content. If you're an admin user, by going to your Manage Models section and selecting your model, now you can add a label to your model. Even delete it. Modify a label or have an overview of all labels. The prompt guide. The prompt guide is crafted to assist users in quickly accessing comprehensive information about Just Ask. It benefits users by clarifying Just Ask functionality, presenting concrete examples through charts and tables, and offering guidance on formulating questions effectively. Sample question improvement. The sample questions help users learn about asking questions and reuse frequently asked questions. Only administrator can create sample questions. With this new improvement, now the admin user can not only add a sample question on the landing page, but also now ask the question in order to test it, and they by one-click action save it and link it to one or several models. Once administrators save sample questions, and users can browse it through them, they are grouped by models.
With the Q2 release, we introduced the option to open models in Data Analyzer from workspaces. It is now also possible to save your insights to a workspace. With Q2 we also allow to copy selected values with the keyboard shortcut and paste them into your documents.
Hi, my name is Orla Cullen and I'm a product manager within SAP Analytics Cloud. With the QRC2 2024 update, the second phase of the variable dialog enhancements will be available in SAP Analytics Cloud. We have redesigned the dialog and have included new functional and usability enhancements. Let's have a look. The dialog got a new compact design, structuring the variables in a grid layout. A settings panel on the top right helps to optimize the space usage within the dialog and stores options like the technical name or the text presentation. This new presentation option allows to switch between the text presentation of variable values, like ID and description. We also improved the interaction with and readability of certain variable types. For single value variables, it is now possible to directly override the value without deleting it or entering the value help. You can just select the value and enter a new one. For multi-selection variables, values will now be represented as tokens. If there are many tokens, the input field offers a drop-down that shows all selected values of that variable. You can also delete these values directly from the list. The improvements for single and multi-select variables are also available when using variables in the filter panel. The new dialog will be available in Story, Data Analyzer, and Mobile.
So in this segment, I want to introduce to you an improvement we have in the area of data modeling, and that is extended support for unit property type in measures. So currently, if you have a measure, you can set a unit property on that measure. It is a fixed unit property. You can define which type it is. But with the Q2 release, we're introducing the ability to alternately include unit properties based on another dimension. So now you have the option of either a fixed unit type on a measure or a dynamic unit type based on the property of another dimension within the model. Then when you report on the measure in the story, if you were to report on a measure based on an alternate dimensions property, it would reflect dynamically based on the selected member. Just a couple of other things to note. This enhancement is a precursor to additional improvements we plan to make over the coming quarters related to unit conversion. And the specific enhancement is only available for non-SAP data centers. So with that, let's jump over and see this in action. So I'm in my model now. You'll notice that I have two measures. One is a volume kilograms, and I have a volume UOM. If I look at my volume kilograms, if I scroll down now to the unit currencies, you'll see that it's of unit type, it's fixed, and it's kilograms. Alternatively, if I look at my volume UOM, I'm going to set this based as a unit type based on the property from the product dimension. And so if I were just to open my product dimension, these are all a list of bikes. You'll see that most of them I've set as pieces, but just to illustrate how this works, I've also set some of the youth bikes to each. Okay? So we'll see how that reflects in our table. So let's jump over and see this in the story. If I were in my story, now I have two measures. The two measures are set up in the columns, kilograms and product UOM. I'll go ahead and just enter some volume numbers for the bikes. And again, there's no unit conversion at this point. That will come in the future. This is more about reporting of the unit types. So you'll see I have kilograms in my left, the reflected pieces in my right column. But if I were to then update my youth bikes, say one of the products in the youth bike category, 29 kilograms, and then I enter a 20 pieces, this is in fact 20 each, because that's the property I'd set, right? So now I have a mixed unit type, and that will not aggregate in the similar way to a local currency, will not aggregate if I have mixed members. So these are the enhancements we have to unit, modeling, and reporting in our Q2 release. Hi, my name is Scott Godfrey. I'm one of the product managers with SAP Analytics Cloud, focused primarily on planning-related topics. Today I'm going to spend a few moments walking through some of the new enhancements we have as part of our Q2 2024 QRC release in the planning area. And we're going to start with an enhancement we have to our calendar wizard. So if you're generating a process hierarchy using the calendar wizard, we now have an optional toggle that allows you to automatically include all descendants during a selection of a node or nodes. Right? So previously, if you selected an element, you had to manually select all members that you wanted to be included in the process hierarchy. Now, if you select a node and you enable that toggle, all descendants from that point down will be selected and included as part of the process hierarchy. Right? So this makes it much easier and much quicker to utilize the calendar wizard to create process hierarchies, especially if there's a lot of nodes involved. So with that, let's jump over and look at this in action. So now I'm in my calendar wizard. I'm going to create a new process hierarchy here, and I've already selected the model. I selected the entity dimension as my hierarchy. In this case, I've selected the total node, and you'll see that by default, because that toggle is not enabled, I only get the total node. This is the current behavior prior to the Q2 release. Now I have this toggle enabled, and when I select a node, I automatically get all descendants under that node or nodes. So for example, if I deselect total, select Americas and APJ, I get the descendants associated with that. If we just move forward with this, I won't include any properties or reviewers or signees. We'll just get to the point where we can see what will be created in the preview. And you'll see in this case that I'm going to get a process hierarchy that's inclusive of the Americas, the descendants associated with that, as well as the descendants for APJ. So this is the new toggle in the calendar wizard that allows the automatic inclusion of descendants as part of the process hierarchy creation with our Q2 2024 QRC release. So we have another small enhancement for advanced formulas, part of this QRC release. And this is actually a follow-on from our release last quarter where we supported sourcing data in a cross-model copy from an analytic model, an SAC analytic model as the source. Well, now within the advanced formula, you can source from an analytic model using a link function. Right? So this gives you a lot more flexibility. If you do have some sources that are analytic only, non-planning models, you want to pull data in from those, you use them as staging models or reporting models, you'll now be able to do that using an advanced formula. So with that, let's jump over and see this in action. So in this case, you'll see that I have two models, a finance model, which is my planning model, and a salary model, which is going to be my analytic source model in my example. And of course, I have an advanced formula. We'll just navigate over to that. And the advanced formula uses the salary model as the link basis for moving the data from the source, right? So in essence, what I'm doing is taking last year's salary. I'm doing a salary increase, pay raise increase, and then pulling that into the subsequent year. And the example will be the actuals, but you can imagine that this would be a scenario where I took current year payroll and uses to seed next year plan. Right. So if we just look at the builder panel, you'll see in my salary model that I have no planning property capabilities, whereas, of course, in the finance model, I do have my planning enabled option and my fluid data entry. I'm going to go ahead now and execute my data action with the advanced formula using the link function. I already have my parameters filled out. If I run that, then what we'll see, of course, is the data from 2023 in the salary model copied to 2024 in the finance model. Right. So this is the analytic model as the source and the link function as part of our Q2 release. The next item I want to cover today is a new API we've introduced into our optimized story experience that will allow you to poll the execution status of a specific run instance for a data action. So now if you execute a data action, you can, via a script API, determine the current execution status of that particular instance. And of course, this then allows you to either provide feedback directly to the user, or if you want to establish some kind of dependencies on run execution, you could do that utilizing this API. So with that, let's jump over and see this in action. So I'm going to do this with two stories, and my first story is actually going to launch the second story. In this first story, I have an action button, or I have a button that I've configured that is going to run the data action and will get the execution ID. It will then open the second story. It will pass the execution ID, where that story will actually continuously check using a timer the current execution status. Okay, so this is the second story. It has a timer on it, and it will check the execution status every half second. So if I jump into view mode here, and I click my start button, I just get a flash as it opens the new story, and you'll see that I have a text box that's actually doing that polling. And if we wait a few seconds here, we'll see that it will return a successful result. So this is the new story polling API as part of our Q2 2024 QRC release. We've made some improvements to our data action tracing capabilities with our Q2 2024 QRC release. And this is specifically the ability to quickly navigate to the leaf level or posting level for a given dimension and dimension hierarchy. Right? So now within the tracing table, you have the access to show only leaves for any row or column dimension. So this, of course, allows the person authoring the data action to more quickly navigate to the impacted members within the tracing table itself, right? So they can now navigate to a sub-branch of the hierarchy, show only leaves, and get directly to the impacted members. So with that, let's jump over and see this in action. So I have my data action. I've already run a trace on it. So I have my trace version already set. If I were to show the table now, you'll see that I have the company code and the sales organization in the row. If I drill on that, it actually is only one level. But let's say I want to quickly navigate to the leaves associated with that. I can now do that by within the row dimension, in this case, the company code. I can select the show only leaves. I'll show only the posting level in this case. And likewise, I can do the same thing for the sales organization, right? And this way I can navigate directly to the posting level across the tuple dimension elements. And of course, if I had a column dimension that had a hierarchy, I could also do that here. So this is the show only leaves in the data action tracing table as part of our Q2 2024 QRC release.
Hello, it's Derek. I'm a product manager for SAP Analytics Cloud. In this enhancement, we're going to be looking at our multi-actions. And what we've done is we've made it very easy to copy the external API URLs from within a dialog box within the multi-action. So now when you go into the preferences, you have your allow extended API access toggle selected, we can then show the details. And when we show the details, we're going to be given the URL for triggering the API, as well as the polling API URL as well. And these can both be copied and then inserted directly into your external application. So let's take a look. So now we've opened up our system and we have the multi-action menu path here. And I'm just going to open up one of the multi-actions so that we can show where the URLs are located. So we've opened it up. We'll go to our preferences. And here you can see we flagged our allowing the external access API. And then we'll show the details. And here's where you can see the trigger API URL as well as the polling API URL. And these can be copied directly, so you can directly copy and paste them into your external application. So that's it for this topic. Hello, it's Derek from Product Management. With this enhancements, users can now apply analytical models to multi-action parameters. So users can use these parameters in data action steps as well as API steps. So let's take a look. So here we've opened up our multi-actions and we started to create a multi-action that basically just takes the copy steps. So we're going to be copying from an analytical model. We're going to be copying sales over to a finance plan. And we have a parameter that we've added as part of our data action for company code that we're going to be using for the mapping. So what we've added here is the ability to create parameters at the multi-action level. So here we're going to create a quick parameter. So this is going to be coming from our analytical model, and we'll select that here. So we'll have it be a single parameter. We'll select our model, and this is what's changed, is that we can now see analytical models at this step. So the rest of the mapping process is pretty straightforward, as this has been available in the product for quite some time. So here you can see we've mapped our analytical model and our dimension, and we're going to use that to create our parameter. Once we've done this, we can then go into our data action parameter here, and we can map that to this particular data action. So there, that's it. It's just as easy as that to be able to configure parameters at the multi-action level that reference analytical models and pass that to your data actions.
With our Q2 2024 QRC release, we made some improvements in terms of notification management for calendar tasks. So up until this point, there's been some confusion and lack of clarity over when notifications get set, and there hasn't been a way to customize that or to reconcile that. And now if you're the administrator, you can go into the administration section. There is a section under notifications dedicated specifically to the calendar notifications. Now you can more formally establish when notifications will be sent. So you can do this either by role, so whether the owner, assignee, reviewer, or a viewer. You can do it by event type. Of course, event type is a long list of certain events and actions and statuses that will determine whether the notification is sent. You can also do it by delivery channel, so whether that's in-app or via email. So let's jump over and just look at the administration console related to this. Now, when I'm in SAC, if I want to get to the calendar notification management, I can do that under the administration tab. Within administration, if I were to navigate to notifications, I'll now see within notifications a subsection dedicated to the calendar. Now within that, of course, I can define the notifications by the responsibility, whether that's the owner, the assignee reviewer, or the viewer. So different notifications to be sent based on the role. Of course, based on the status or the action, I can define the notifications, whether that's to activate, approve, reject, submit. And I can make any changes to the default for these roles by clicking the pencil icon, then making the changes and saving them. I also have quick access to enable or disable all notifications for a given role, or to reset the role notifications to the default. So this is the enhancements to notification management as part of our Q2 2024 QRC release. With the Q2 release, we're introducing a slew of new APIs in the story for administrating and updating calendar tasks. So, for example, the ability to create a calendar process in addition to a task, the ability to update existing properties for pre-created tasks, such as the context, definition of dependencies, establishment of owners or reviewers, right? All of these are now available. In essence, our goal here now is to ensure that we have near parity between what you can do in the calendar UX when you create or update a calendar task and what's possible using the story APIs. Let's jump over into the story script to just browse some of these APIs. So I'm in my story script. Now there are so many of these new APIs and changes that we certainly will not try to cover them and won't do an end-to-end demo. I'm just going to show you a list of the methods that can be pulled up here. So you'll see that if I just delete my submit, now I have all these actions or methods against the task. I can add an owner, for example. I can approve a task. I can get the due date and end date. In effect, anything that I can do in the UX within the calendar, I should have some kind of ability to do now using the script APIs. So these are the enhanced APIs for the calendar available in the story with our Q2 2024 QRC release.
Hello, this is Derek from SAP Product Management. With this enhancement, we have expanded the formatting options for planning triggers and optimized stories. We now support SVG files and story theme support for default formatting of planning triggers. Planning triggers include multi-actions, data actions, and planning sequences. Of course, these default settings can be overridden in the story. So let's take a look. So here we have our story that we have added a data action to it. So what we're talking about in terms of adding these or formatting for the planning actions are really the data actions, multi-actions, and planning triggers. So we can go into the theme. In this case, I have a theme started, and we can start our configuration. So under the widgets, we're going to see a planning action trigger, and we see some capabilities to do this formatting as part of this theme. So I'm going to change the look and feel of this a little bit. So we have our changes to our label here that we've just created. I can upload a SVG file as well. In this case, I'm just going to add a back arrow as part of this. And you can see we have some additional configuration that we can do for our font if we would like. So at this point, I'm going to save our configuration changes and apply it to the widget that's on the page. And here you can see our theme has been applied. So if we were at another planning action, like a data action, you can see that the system will apply the formatting that's shown here. And here I'm just going to attach a sample data action to this, and you can see that the formatting is the same. As you can expect, you can also override the formatting as well if you like. In this case, I'm just going to change the background color, in this case to a light blue. So you can always override your formatting, your default formats directly in the story as well. Thank you, and that's all for this video. Hello, this is Derek from SAP Product Management. With this enhancement, we're going to allow dynamic extensions of the planning area during data entry where the auto-generate based on table context option is selected for the table. This allows working with a public version where the planning area has or has not been initiated. The planner can view changes in the planning area scope within the version details and view where these extensions have occurred in version history. Now let's take a look. So now we're going to take a look at our story. And the first thing we're going to do is look at the configuration that's going to be required for this scenario. So if we select the table here, you can see that we've selected the option to auto-generate the planning area based on the table context. And we'll want to select this, and this will allow us to dynamically expand the planning area based on your selections for the table filters. So we'll take a look at this as we progress through this scenario. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to plan on our US bike company, and we're just going to adjust our gross margin. So we're going to increase that by 10%. And what I'd like to do is take a look at the version management here, and then take a look at the definition for our planning area. So we'll look at the details. And here you can see that we're creating the context of the planning area based on the table. And you can see our Q2. Our company code is US Bikes. So I'm going to change the company code to German Bikes, and you can see that this is now outside of our planning area definition. And this is where dynamic expansions come into play. So now we're looking at the German Bike Company, and here I'm just going to increase the gross margin by 10% as well. And then we can take a look at our details, look at the definition for planning area, and you can see that it's been extended to include the German Bike Company. Another way you can see this as well is if you look at the history. So here you can see that this is where we started when we started planning on the US Bike Company here, and we've made some changes, and then we moved over to the German Bike Company. And you can see that we've done an extension on the planning area, and then we've made additional changes here. So if you want to, you could revert back through your history to earlier steps as well. So that concludes the demonstration of this feature.
Hello, I'm Jeanne Bigonnet, Product Manager for SAP Analytics Cloud. I present you today the latest QRC2 features available in SAP Analytics Cloud add-in for Microsoft Excel. We introduce a new menu named Refresh Selected Functions, where you can decide to refresh only the function that has been selected in the workbook. Here, the idea is really to gain in terms of performance. Last, we support a new offline mode option in the workbook's preferences, where the report creator can switch to offline and send his report to others. When this person will open the reports, even if the add-in is not installed, he can still get the data and retrieve the numbers available in the add-in. Then, of course, when the creator receives back the workbook, he can switch back to online mode, and then all the data are then updated with SAP Analytics Cloud. Thank you for your attention.
In this video, we'll be showcasing a preview of the upcoming improved filtering experience in SAP Analytics Cloud to be released for Q2 2024. This enhanced filter by member experience offers new ways of filtering charts and many more widgets. This new filtering experience is available for all stories using the optimized story experience. We have focused specifically on the filter by member dialog to make it more simple and intuitive. With the new layout, you now have access to quick and essential actions like the search field or the hierarchy selector. Additionally, to increase efficiency and keep the dialog simple, the rest of the settings can now be found in the settings panel. We have also made the dialog responsive, movable, and resizable. This way, you can resize the areas that are of the most interest to you, whether that's the available members or the member selected area. This allows for better usability when selecting members. To improve readability, there is now a multi-column display when using the ID and description setting. Additionally, the new color coding for value help should also help readability when including or excluding values. Besides these visual improvements, we have also refined the include-exclude function to make it more flexible. You will now be able to fine-tune the values you want to include or exclude rather than a whole node. The pagination mechanism has been replaced by continuous scrolling. You can now keep scrolling down to see the whole list of members rather than clicking Previous or Next buttons. Members will keep loading automatically until you reach the end of the list. This adds smoothness to the user experience and overall better usability. When you open the dialog, it immediately invites you to look for members by putting the focus on the search bar. You can now use the wildcard in the search bar to bring up more results even faster. The wildcard allows you to replace 0 or more characters. Matching values are highlighted in the value list. The first space of the new filter by member dialog is limited to stories, pages, and local charts, filters, and calculation space on live and acquired connections to SAP HANA and SAP BW systems. In other areas and connection types, the current filter by member dialog is still shown, but will be phased out over the next upcoming SAP Analytics Cloud releases.
With Q2 QRC, we are also bringing in some additional features into the optimized stack. That includes batch export, dynamic font scaling while using device preview, action widgets, and export by way of a table. So let's look at a short demo about some of these functionalities. So here I have a story. So if I, with respect to device preview, you can see that the moment I change the resolution and make it to a laptop type, the font size and the charts, widgets, etc. get scaled automatically. If I change it to, let's say, a 4K HD, again, the width, the widgets, the chart size, the font, etc. get scaled automatically. If I make it to, let's say, a large tablet, here I can see that my charts have been scaled perfectly fine. So this was about the dynamic font scaling using a device preview. Let's look at the export option. The batch export is a view time configuration. So let's look at how we can do a batch export. It's under the file menu. Click on export. Here I can choose the page type, export type, file type, whether it has to be a PDF or a PowerPoint, whether I want a specific page or all pages, the size of the page, let's say I want to make it as A4, the orientation, whether I want the header, footer, what text I should include in the header, footer, whether I should have the page, number, date, etc. Appendix, which will include the model information as well as the filters. Now, for enabling batch export, You'll have to select the story filter, select the members against which the batch export has to be done. I only want it on the region level, so I've selected the regions. I'll do an enable export in the background so that it happens in the background, and I can click on export. So once the export is, so this will give you an information window or a warning message which says that please do not close or refresh the browser tab unless the export while the export is in progress. And once the export is completed, it will automatically be downloaded and it will be available in your download section. And there will be a success message as well. Now that the download has export has been done, there's a success message which indicates the story exported successfully. Let's look at the output. So here I have my story which has been exported. The appendix shows you all the information like model, then the filter that was applied.
The other feature that we have released with Q2QRC is rank with others. Now rank with others gives you users an option to group the dimension values which fall under the other bracket or which does not fall under top 5 or top n or bottom n conditions into a bucket called as others. Users have an option to define the name of the other node. Let's see a demo for this. I want to identify top 5 sales regions out of it and group remaining one of them in one bucket. So as a designer, what I can do is I can go into rank, top 5, I can select top 5 option, group remaining. I can choose the name of the others node, rest of the world, and depending on whether it is top 5 or bottom n, the others node will come either on top or bottom. So here I have top 5, so that's the reason why the rest of the world is on at the bottom. If I switch it to bottom, the rest of the world will come on top. Now please note that the rank with others always works for a flat dimension and simple measures.
As part of Q2QRC, one of the biggest feature that we are rolling out this year is repointing of a model in a story. So now with Q2QRC, the designers can replace a model provided the model is from the same data source type and has the same structure. We allow you to replace models from different connections, but they have to be of the same source type. For example, a BW to BW, datasphere to datasphere, a live HANA to live HANA, and also the structure has to be same, which means that it has to be two structure BW model can be replaced by a two structure BW model, but one structure BW model cannot be replaced by a two structure BW model or vice versa. So some of the supported models for model replacement is the datasphere analytical model, the new model type which has with the measures and accounts, the new model type which has user management time dimension or week pattern, SAP HANA, SAP BW, S4 HANA. Some of the unsupported models include SAP Universe, embedded private models, SAP cloud application models like SuccessFactors, IBP, etc. Some model types cannot be used for replacement, such as SAP Datasphere Analytical Dataset, which is being replaced by an analytical model. A classic account model can only be replaced by a new model with accounts and measures, but vice versa is not allowed. And a public dataset can be replaced by a new model with measures. Also, a data model with different structures, for example, a classic account model to a new model type with measures and no accounts is not supported. A new model type with measures and no accounts to a new model type with accounts and measures is not supported. Again, BW1 structure model with a BW2 structure model is not supported.
We also don't support the replacement across the live connections, for example, BW to DataSphere, across live to acquired connection, and also data model with a version to a data model without a version. Now, having said that, let's look at a replacement. So here we have a story. Let's get into the edit mode. So first we will look at migration of a SAP BW um, to SAP BW migration replacement. Now the option for replacement is under the add data under tools menu. So here I am replacing this particular BW data model with another BW data model. Now here you can see that both the BW data models um, uh, are of different connections. Now, since both the data models are of the same type, and also the data model itself is very similar, it's just that we are mapping it to a different connection type. The mapping is fairly straightforward. In this mapping window, you have an option to look at all the objects which are currently used in the story, and they are mapped first, and they are shown in the mapping screen. Here you have an option to filter out only to look at mapped objects, unmapped objects. Also, you can look at it from ID or description type. Here, the objects which are currently used in the story are being mapped. It's a straightforward mapping, so I'm just clicking on review. If there are any mapping issues, it is shown here in the summary section. And if there are any impacts, so here it gives you the it gives you the impact that undo redo will be reset. So any actions with respect to the story will be reset. That also includes bookmarks, data point comments. These are all options that will be reset. So let's click on the replace model. So here you will see that earlier the description was in German, now the description is in English, and we have successfully migrated or replaced the connection type of a SAP BW model from SAD1E to BIX. Now let's look at replacing a classic account model to a unified account model. So here I have profit and loss. So I am replacing my model. Again, it gives you a impact a warning which says that the undo, redo, and all those bookmarks, etc., will be reset, and the actions will have all your actions with the stories will be reset. Here, it will not show you any BW model because classic account model to BW is not supported. So let's search for the model that we want to replace with. So here it gives me all the mappings. The automatic logic is a bit complex, but it gives based on the name, the data type, precision, etc. There's a complex logic behind it. Now in the information button, you can see that the accounts that are mapped has different, let's say, the decimal type, different precision type, etc. So those kind of things will be shown as an information, but they don't have a major impact on the story. Here, since it is an account and measure model, so I'll be replacing it with the measure here. Again, it's a drag and drop option, or you can just select it from the list here. So here I have sales region. Now the sales region is something that has not been mapped to any of the dimension. So what I can do is I can look at the supported dimensions allowed here. So let me select location here. So location has been mapped. Again, region is a geo point, so I will not, and since it is an area enriched dimension, so I won't be able to map a geo area to it, but I will be able to map a geo point. So the suggested replacement is for geo point. By default, the hierarchies are not loaded. So if you want to add the hierarchy, you can select the hierarchy here. Now it gives a warning symbol here. It's because of the level mismatch, which means that in the previous model there might be an extra level, or there will be extra level in the current model. So the drill down will be affected accordingly. The other thing to note is here is a quick button which gives you a quick overview of what are the warnings. You can filter out by warnings, you can filter out by information, you can look at the details of it, etc. So it gives you a quick snapshot of what exactly is happening here and what can be done. Again, here you have an option to look at the mapped objects, unmapped objects to make it easy for mapping. There is an option to sort these members ascending or descending. Again, the mapping gives precedence to, or the mapping window gives precedence to objects which are being used in the story, so that it avoids the confusion for the user, and it makes it easy to replace the story, replace the models in a story. Now let's look at the review. Now here it gives a quick snapshot of what are the impacts based on medium, low, high impact. It is categorized. If there are any issues with the assets, it will it will show here. These are all information. These are all based on the number precisions that are different in both the models. And additional impact will again show you the variables, exit variables that are being used, that will be reset. The undo redo stack will be reset. The bookmarks on the original assets will no longer apply because the because the model has changed, and also the data point comments will be replaced. So let's click on the replace model. So once we click on the replace model, it will give you a window which says that the model is being replaced. And once my replacement is done, you will see that I can see all my widgets which are working perfectly fine. It's functioning fine. There's no issue with it. And I'm able to see all my charts. So this is a quick overview about model replacement within SAC Story. Thank you.
Another small feature delivered in Q2 release is supporting burst mode for data change insights. We enable users to choose between broadcast mode and burst mode in Subscribe to Data Change Insights dialog. When burst mode is selected, story viewers will receive data change insights based on their own authorizations rather than those based on the schedulers. Now in the demo here, I loaded the story in view mode. And then I subscribe several charts to data change insights. If I open the dialog of data change insights, I can switch the mode from the default broadcast to burst here by simply clicking the radio button. So after I set the name and check the distribution, I can simply create the task in burst mode here. In Q2 release, we continuously deliver enhancement of Composite feature. The first enhancement is Composite data source configuration. It is designed to address the desire of a story designer or developer to reuse the composite with predefined data source and further configure it based on story context, such as repoint the data source to the other one or rebind its dimension or measure to others without changing the data model. We also introduced a new set panel in story design time per composite widget to list all in-use models in token format. Users can trigger the data source configuration workflow by simply clicking the token. And the other enhancement is to add composites in responsive page of a story. Here is a demo with a sample story and a sample composite. The sample composite is very simple. There's only one chart with predefined data source in it. The sample story is created with the sample composite imported in it. And the composite is inserted into a tab stripped widget multi-times. You can see that the 4 charts placed in the tab stripped are using the same composite. The location is the same actually. User can further configure the composite data source in the population tab to a totally new model. When clicking the token in the side panel and select a different data model, the Replace Model dialog pops up. We can complete all the mappings here in the dialog. And then do the actual replacement. Users can also change the in-use dimension or measure without changing the data model. So this time, I will choose the same model. So we will choose the same data model, the income model. Complete the same mapping process. And review the routes, then click the replacement. Okay, now the composite is updated to show the measure of expense. Next, I will demo the second enhancement of composite. I will create a new story with responsive page. So now in the assets here, in the story with responsive page, users are able to import the composite in this kind of story. So let's say I import a simple composite with a chart in it. And then let's drag and drop the composite into the page. Okay, the composite is successfully inserted into the story with the responsive page.
Hi, in this demo video I will highlight the new feature, the support of a universal account model known as UAM with custom widgets. So right now as a story designer in the optimized story experience or also unified story, you can connect your custom widget and link it to universal account model, and with that we increase the type of models that the story designer can consume when he use custom widget within his story. So let's go through the scopes. So with this feature we will support both model types, the model with measures and an account dimension, and also model with measures and no account dimension. So both types of models that are supported. No extra work for the customer widget, for the custom widget developers, if they will use the SAC built-in builder panel that everyone knows, this builder panel, the classic one that you can see in the screenshot. So no further scripting, no additional code must be added. So when a model includes both measures and an account dimension, so the API get members, add members to feed, and also remove members functions only apply to an account dimension. Therefore, it's impossible to manipulate measure feeding with the custom builder panel. So here we are in SAC, and I will add a custom widget to my story. It's a classic bar chart, and then I will link it to universal account model. So this is the classic use case that I will highlight. I will choose here the universal account model, and I see already that I can add my account. And for that I will choose these 3 accounts, and then also I will select my measure from the measure list, LC value for this example, and also I will add filter, which is the actual from the version. And here we are, we have our custom widget linked to universal account model with just simple clicks. We see the accounts, the measure, and also the version. So here we have also another use case. It's universal account model with only one measure, which is the USD measure. So also we can link it to custom widget. Here we have another use case, which is containing no account dimension, only measure dimension. Also it's possible to link it to custom widget. Here also another use cases with universal account model with different hierarchies. Also it's supported and possible to link. And at last, so we have another example, which is also 2 custom widgets which are linked to universal account model, but the left one, it's when the account dimension is leading, and this is the left example, and on the right example we see that when the universal account model, so the measure dimension, it's the leading structure in our universal account model.
This enhancement provides the ability to change a model used in a story. This is a frequent need in development phases when stories are initially built on top of existing models, but when purposely built models become available, story developers want to leverage these while preserving their work. It supports both acquired and live models, including SAP DataSphere models. The only exception are live business planning and consolidation models and live universe and live web intelligence models. Deprecated models, that is SAP DataSphere analytical datasets and SAP Analytics Cloud classic account models, are only supported as source, so you can use the feature to move away from these deprecated models. Source and target models can be based on different servers, but the source system type and the structure must be the same. For instance, a live BW model with 2 structures can only be replaced with a live BW model with 2 structures. Let's look at an example. Here we have a story that is based on a DataSphere model. The story leverages various features including dimension and measure input controls, dynamic text, calculated measures, and more. From the Builder panel, we see that the time series chart is based on a model named Employee and Expense Basis. The measure is named Approved Amount and the time dimension named Paid On. Let's go ahead and replace this model with another DataSphere model. From the Financial Analysis space, we select the model Travel and Expense Reporting. Story designers have the ability to map target to source objects. Only objects that are used in the story need to be mapped. Objects that have the same name are mapped automatically. Objects can be mapped by using drag and drop, or by selecting compatible objects from the drop-down. We can then review the mapping. Story designers have the flexibility to perform an incomplete mapping. The Story Asset Issue tab will provide the information on the impact in the story. In this case, the mapping is complete. There are no issues. Once the model is replaced, the first thing you will notice is that the data has changed. But more importantly, the dimensions and the measures used by the charts and the tables changed and are now from the model Travel and Expense Reporting. I'm happy with the change of models. I can go ahead and save the story and remove from the story the model initially used.
The Q2 QRC release for SAP Analytics Cloud brings another major feature called Unified Story Presentation Mode. The Unified Story Presentation Mode aims at bringing the core functionalities or reproducing the core functionalities of classic SAP Digital Boardroom into the Unified Story. Presentation Mode aims at providing cross-story navigation and an immersive viewing experience to all SAP Analytics Cloud customers. It provides our designers with the ability to import multiple stories or pages or subset of pages from a story. It allows you to add topic and subtopics, have a single lane presentation configuration, and it also allows the designers to implement enterprise theming to maintain a consistent viewing experience across pages from multiple stories. Now let's look at a demo. We'll start with So we'll start with opening a story. So as you can see, the entry point is exactly same. We will open a story in the edit mode. We'll be seeing how we can use each of these functionalities individually or in combination. Now let's look at how we can import pages. So to import pages, it can be done in a couple of ways. So one is through outline, where on pages you can have an import story page option, or through the add pages section where you can have an import story page. So we'll be selecting a story and importing a complete story here. So I am choosing a story here. Here I'm selecting all the pages within a story. I have an option to choose only few pages or a subset of pages, but here I'm choosing all the pages. And now my import process has started. Once the import process is finished, it will give me a warning or a success message or a status message which indicates which pages have been imported successfully and which pages have failed or has any warnings. Now to note here is that the importing uses the same functionality as copying of pages across multiple browser tabs or multiple stories. So the limitations of copy and paste will be applicable for importing as well. The page outline section also clearly indicates which page is currently active, which page has been imported, and which page is part of the original story. You can see a different icon for the pages. Now let's configure the presentation setting using a topic and subtopic structure. This can be done from the toolbar or from the outline section itself. So let's build a topic here. Let's add a topic here. So I have created my topics and subtopic structure. I can add pages by dragging and dropping the pages into each and every topic or a subtopic. Now here you can see that the pages which has been added will have a check mark against it, and the page which has not been added will not have a check mark. Also, a page can be only added once to a presentation setting. Now that I have created my presentation structure, I can save the story. Great. So now let's look at the final output. To do this, I have to click on the present mode, which is available on the top right corner of right next to the edit button. So this is how the final output looks. So here I have a toolbar, which is a floating toolbar, and a navigation bar, which is pinned to the left panel. So let's move around the toolbar. It's floating, so I can move it around and I can bring it down to the screen. The navigation panel or the filter panel is exactly similar to a unified story. It is anchored to the left pane. I have an option to unpin it and make it floating as well. To do that, I click on detach option. So here I have the navigation pane which is floating. The page which is active is indicated with a blue dot. I can anchor it back to the left panel. The page navigator within a topic or a subtopic is done using a drop down or the arrow buttons. To jump between the topics, we have a topic navigator as well. If you click in any blank space of the toolbar, it will minimize. This way, it gives a very clutter-free experience. And to expand it back, click on the 3 bars. As part of the unified story, we provide the capability to bookmark, to export a story. The export can be done using in PDF or a PowerPoint format. You can choose a page size, the orientation, what details you want to include within a page, whether the export has to be done in foreground or in background, whether it has to be a batch export, etc. So all these settings are available as part of the presentation mode as well. So we aim to provide a feature parity with the unified story in the presentation mode as well. Now let's look at one of the core function, one of the updates that we have done with the presentation mode. So since the pages are imported into our story, we still maintain the reference to the original page. So let's see what happens when we edit the original page. So here I have the original story. I am going to edit this bar into a numeric point. So here I have converted the story, this page widget into a numeric point widget. Let me save the story and navigate back to my presentation story. Great, my story is saved. So let me navigate back to the presentation story. So let me refresh the story, and now under the outline I can see an information button which says there has been an update to the base pages. Would you like to review it? And I can click on review, and this will show me all the pages that has been updated. By default, only the last update is shown. So here I have an option to choose which update I want to apply. So the update that I've done on overview, I am confident about it, so I will be selecting that update. I have an option to update all the pages at one go. Once my update is done, it indicates with a status message now that it is successful. Let's see the update that has been done. So here I can see my profit forecast, which was a bar graph, has now been converted into a numeric point. Now let's look at some of the toolbar configurations that we have. So as part of the toolbar configurations, we can go into view time, settings, toolbar, and choose the present mode. By default, 15 quick access menu is available in the toolbar. This can be chosen as per the workflow. By removing a tile, you can add other tile into the workflow. The toolbar can be set as floating or set. By default, it is floating. When you keep set, you can choose whether you want it at top or bottom. When you keep it bottom, it will mimic the action bar of a classic SAP Digital Boardroom. It will be very similar to that. And at any time, if any of the settings has been too much, you want to revert it back to the classic setting, original setting, click on reset tool.
Thanks for watching. Hopefully our demos have helped you leverage the latest features in SAP Analytics Cloud in your organization. Remember to leave a like on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with everything Analytics Cloud. We are excited to see what's to come in 2024, so stay tuned and we'll see you next time.